because there will be other venues where there'll be a huge amount of public comment that is going to be run by the city. So this will be between BPAC and us tonight. Go for it, Jim.
Okay, Madam Chair and Commissioners, thank you. I'm Jim Gustafson. I'm not really presenting the item tonight. I'm introducing it. So I think that you may have a speaker card, and it's up to your discretion. But we did get an opinion from the city attorney that we could take public comment tonight. So I would recommend doing that if there's only one or two or three, which it looks like there is. Anyway, we have. The item before you tonight has been considered on a few occasions by the Council. On October 11th, 2011 was the most recent consideration of it, where the Council unanimously approved, indicating a city's preference for option B, which is a wider bridge option, as you will be looking at tonight. There were some narrower bridge options that didn't have the amenities that the proposed bridge has. There was a suggestion from Council at that time that the county design to include colored bicycle lanes and the best method for accommodating pedestrians, bicycles, providing handicap access and traffic calming measures. So the team that's here tonight is to inform on progress that's been made on that direction, and for comments from this deliberative body of the Planning Traffic Commission and the BPAC on any response. It does not, as an informational item, does not require a motion, but comments will be documented. I know you're seeing the presentation for the first time tonight, so there's a way for comments to be delivered to staff, and we will email you the way to do that, so that if you have some comments after tonight, you can do it that way as well. So I would like to introduce now Brian Fletcher from Calendar Associates. He is from the landscape architect that the county has engaged. Other folks here, Amir Duragi from Santa Clara County Roads and Airports, Dennis Hagland from Drake Hagland. Okay, so he's a partner and has worked with the city for a long time on some other projects. And I think we have Eli, his assistant, one of the engineers. He's really the project engineer for structural and bridge design, and will probably be able to answer questions that no one else could answer. And then our commissioners. So with that, I'll introduce Brian.
And if each of you will please reintroduce yourself by your name when you get up there so we remember it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Brian Fletcher. I'm a principal with Calendar Associates Landscape Architects. Our specific role in this project was to further continue looking at pedestrian and bicycle safety, as well as the bridge aesthetics. Is what sort of cues can we take within the community that could then be translated into the architectural features of the bridge. As you're aware of this project, how do I go forward and back, Jim?
Click somewhere out of that box.
Okay. I think you're well aware of the history and status, and Jim just went over most of that. So I'm going to jump right into the plan view and some of the aesthetic enhancements, if I can get it right.
I think if you click at the up arrows at the top.
Yeah, let me just do that. Great suggestion. Perfect. Just to remind everybody what we're looking at now as far as the existing bridge and some of the elements that we want to take a look at is the cross section of the bridge as you're looking from Foothill Boulevard, as well as the existing retaining walls and what sort of treatments can be done to do that. As well as once you're on the bridge, it's the pedestrian zone, it's the sidewalks, it's what can we do to enhance the standard bridge type railings and then what do we do on the abutments as it kind of reaches into town there. So the plan view, and I think everyone here is probably aware, we took the widened bridge section here. You can see it in lighter color here. What we've done is we have extended the colored bike lanes throughout the project. Those are 6-foot bike lanes. And you can see where they've been extended. Also, what we've been doing is working to connect the crosswalks with actual curb ramps, much of which are not out there today, and looking at minor realignments to some of the curbs there in order to get better protection for those pedestrians itself. So we've got new curb ramps at each one of the crosswalk locations, as well as new sidewalks at this location and this bottom location as well. We've indicated 2 new bulb outs at this location here and this location here to protect the parking, also to reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians as they cross newly developed crosswalks with varying types of pavements, and I'll show you those in a second here. With that, I'll move into the concepts themselves. We were working to try to take cues, and this is the first time we're bringing the developing concepts in front of you. So I'm really looking forward to feedback and how they can be developed further as we progress into the public input and such. But the first one we're kind of coining the Loyola Woods is taking a look at the natural elements that we find in your new streetscape improvements, as well as some of the other bridges, and bringing in stonework, bringing in reliefs within the bridge railings themselves to kind of reflect the natural elements that we see. This is, excuse me, this is the perspective rendering looking back on the bridge. In this concept, we've got 2 abutments, or basically where the bridge grounds itself. We're bringing in the natural stones, capping that you see in your downtown streetscape, bringing in colored concrete crosswalks, as well as the green bike lanes you can see right there. That would be translated on Foothill. You can see the stone would actually be on both ends, but then also brought into small columns on either side with the bridge itself in between. We'd be looking to, we're going to be studying paint alternatives for the walls themselves, these abutments on either side here, in order to clean up the appearance of those, as well as clean up some of the ivy that's kind of dangling down from those as well. The next alternative is taking a little bit of a historical tie back into what Foothill was, which was a railroad corridor, and taking a look at the old train depot that was in Los Altos, and taking some of the architectural cues and materials, whether it be the brick pattern or more of the craftsman style columns that we found on that structure itself. You can see how that would tie in to the bridge itself. Brick crosswalks instead of colored concrete crosswalks. You can see how then that could begin to translate into the bridge facade itself. So as you see, these are the very beginnings, and very, very much looking forward to initial comments and feedback that you may have with the initial direction and how we can refine them as we move forward.
Shall we wait to the end? Do you want to do individual comments on each speaker? No, okay, let's wait till we have the full presentation. Who will be our next speaker?
That concludes the presentation.
Cool.
Phoebe, do you want to take public comment, or should we
You know,
defer?
we have one request to speak. My inclination is to take comment from BPAC before, rather than the public at this moment, because there will be public, and in fact, the one speaker who did request, is part of BPAC. Of course, now I have a new one. Having just announced previously that I was not taking public comment, I will have staff reserve these 2 cards, and we will make contact at another time.
Okay.
So, you guys have some comments you'd like to make on this?
Okay, BPAC. Let's go around the table. I'll start with Jim Fenton. Want to make any comments? Any thoughts?
Here we go. Thank you. I'm quite impressed with the aesthetics and the facilities that are provided generally. So this is a huge improvement. A couple of questions. One has to do with the bulb outs. There are 2 that are shown. One of which is protecting some parking in front of the stores over by the Bicycle Outfitter on Fremont Avenue. So I understand the motivation for that. I'm a little bit more concerned about the other bulb out that's shown on the, I think it works out to be the eastern corner. Do the coordinate thing.
We'll call it
Yeah.
north-south. How about that?
Right, whatever. As I don't remember there being parking on that section of Fremont Avenue, at least currently, and so I'm not so it's not providing a function in terms of protecting parking or providing sort of a continuation. I'm concerned about that bulb out, though, just in terms of the element of surprise for a bicycle that might be riding along Fremont, and all of a sudden there's this curb kind of jutting out. And the other motivation that's listed here for it is that it's for traffic calming, but this is already an intersection that has a signal.
To answer your first question about parking, there is existing parking in that location. Just confirm with Jim as well, as you
There
can
is.
see it on the aerial there.
I couldn't see it there, but that's all right.
Yeah, you can actually see the little white markings there.
The little demarcations.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I stand corrected then.
I don't think anybody ever parks there.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something to look at. But I do have this concern about bicycle safety with the bulb outs. I'm not sure that there's a strong motivation for traffic calming, given that there's a traffic signal at that location.
Yeah, I would agree. If I said traffic calming, I may have misspoke. It's more pedestrian safety and reducing the crossing distance from one corner to the next.
Okay. The other question that I have is when I look at the alignment of the bridge with respect to A Street as compared with the current. It's one of the earlier slides has a picture of the current alignment looking towards A Street, and there's a traffic light on one corner of the bridge, and now the bridge is significant. Yes, over on the left side of the bottom picture there. Mm-hmm. You see, there's towards us. There's a traffic light on that corner, and it looks as though that edge of the bridge is being moved over significantly. So I'm wondering what the diagrams don't show any of the placements for the traffic signals. So I'm wondering how that will be accommodated.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Eli, but I believe that traffic signal would have to be relocated and moved slightly north.
Right. When I look at the proposed the concept plan, though, it looks as though where it would have to be relocated to would be pretty well out of the normal sight line of somebody coming out of A Street. Right. If you had you'd need an arm there. It would be nice to understand the.
We'll take a closer
signal
look at
placement.
that and clarify that.
I have a question. I have a question, and that's really for Jim. Is it the intent to make A Street still two ways, or is it the intent to try to make it a one-way street? Because the way that it's aligned, it makes it natural for a one-way street, but for a two-way street, it seems like it's pretty narrow.
Can we have the plan again on the screen?
Can you put the street plan in?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So while he puts that up, yes, the Loyola Streetscape plan still has A Street at some future date becoming a one-way street going northbound or to the right of the drawing as he shows it. It's still in the plan, years out. We have asked the county, and they've agreed to design the bridge in a way that it will accommodate the status quo and a one-way direction in the future if that ever happens.
Other comments from BPAC?
Jim, are you done?
I've got one other quick
Okay.
one, which is just, we're obviously going to need to make sure that whatever we're doing here is coordinated with the streetscape, which hasn't been looked at in a couple of years now, and some of the local merchants and so forth may have some different ideas than they had at that time.
I think
Thank you.
we have a consultant comment.
Yeah, I do have a comment.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Eli Armani with Drake Haglin. Thank you. In response to the question about future A Street, if you look at the exhibit in front of you, the existing bridge is being widened to the west or to the north 22 feet. And it's being widened to the east or south by 10 feet. The center line of the new Loyola Bridge is going to be 6 feet.
South of where it is now.
It's going to be moved 6 feet to the east.
So the center line of the bridge is shifting.
The center line of the bridge is shifting by about 6 feet. Now, it doesn't matter what you do on A Street, whether whether it remains a two-way street or if in the future you decide to make it a one-way street. The difference between the center line of A Street and the new bridge is only going to be moved by about 6 inches.
6 inches?
6 inches.
You said feet.
6 inches, half a foot.
Okay, you
Just
just
to
lost
clarify,
me.
that's 6 feet to the west, right, that the center line is moving?
Right.
And that makes it in a better alignment with A Street, is what you're saying.
Well, what I'm saying is we can build the bridge today in its final configuration, and in the future, whether the city makes a decision to make A Street a one-way street, it would be a matter of striping.
Okay, so it works in both
So
situations.
it does work in both directions.
Thank you for your comment.
Wes, comments?
Yes, thank you. Trouble with having someone who's so knowledgeable give comments first as they take all of mine.
You could say you agree and we can move on.
I have one, and it's associated with the alignment issue, and it's really something I'm not sure there's anything to do about. I'm just going to make the comment on what we'll call the north side or the upper side of the page where we have the green striping that's curving from A Street to across the bridge. Concerned that bicyclists especially tend to not be real good at following those sudden shifts in pathways. And so especially if A is two-way, I think we could have some issues there with bicycles coming up A Street trying to beat the light and going straight into oncoming traffic. So it's and I'm not sure there's anything you can do about it given the alignment of just all the streets there, but I just wanted to raise that concern. That's all.
Chris, comments? You do need to borrow a mic. Lean in. Lean in.
Okay. Well, I guess I sort of agree with Jim and Wes. I have some. It just is just to me this path that you show, even if you've got it marked in green, looks just really odd to me, and I don't know how that's going to work out operationally. It just it's a very unusual path, and it's a very unusual intersection and unnatural looking this way. I mean, the ideal thing, I think, would be to not have quite so much widening all to the north, and have such an offset here. I toyed with the idea of having the bulb out start later, but I don't think that'll help anything, and it might make it worse. So it's just very odd looking to me. That's all I have to say.
Bill Crook.
Gee, I think I want
Mike, please.
to use the mouse to try to point where I have a suggestion, if I may. Thank you. I have my concern is cars coming this direction on A Street, and I say this from being a crossing guard for a number of years, get frustrated. There may be a tendency to drive up on the sidewalk to bypass traffic and come down. I was wondering about a bullet or something right here, somewhere along here, to make it a bit more challenging for someone who's impatient driving up on that ramp to use the sidewalk to get around cars.
Jeez. It's horrifying to think we have to actually do that.
Any other comments, Bill?
Pardon?
Any other comments, Bill?
No.
Mr. Shepherd.
So it contradicts the aerial, but I looked with Google Street View, and that is all red curb to the south of A Street. So unless it's been changed, what shows as parking there, and I live relatively close to this, I also don't recall seeing parking there. So I don't believe currently there is parking.
At the, what used to be the photomat?
Right
Correct.
here, this is what you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Google Street View shows no markings and a red curb along there.
And isn't there a driveway there too? As I remember, there's a driveway that comes from the photomat onto Fremont, and that where those parking spaces are. It's that little
Correct.
indentation out there.
Yeah. All right. Next point is I wonder whether there will be what the guidance will be for drivers headed west on A Street to know that they need to shift to the right to continue in terms of striping or bot dots or something.
What sort of lane striping to go from?
Exactly.
Right.
Across the intersection.
Okay.
And then in terms of aesthetics, I conceptually like the historical tie-in, and seeing it on the paper, it looks nice, but I think seeing it just driving by, I think it would be very hard to make the connection with the brickwork and what used to be there. So I think aesthetically, the Loyola Woods concept looks better. I like the idea behind the historical, but I don't think there's enough other cues visually to make that connection with why this is brickwork and what it's supposed to, to recall. So, and in general, I use this intersection almost daily, and I'm thrilled at the idea of the green striping and having a much more visual cue for the drivers to understand that the bicyclists have the right of way on that section. So, even though it's awkward, again with the alignment, I don't think there's any way around that. So I'm very supportive of how this is drawn on the sidewalks.
Okay, I have a few comments. I concur with what's been said already. A couple of additional comments. Fremont Avenue is, again, as I stated earlier in the meeting, it is an alternative that cyclists like to use because that is a very fast corridor underneath that bridge. So cyclists do like to use Fremont Avenue to get around that so they don't have to go down and back up again. It's perceived as safer. If you have that bulb out, I am concerned about that surprising cyclists. Additionally, I would like to see sharrows on that segment there to indicate to motor vehicles, that bicycles will share that rightmost lane as a travel-through lane. Again, because cyclists do use that as an alternative to going down and up again. I would really like to see that. Next, I'm concerned about the queue time on that left-hand turn pocket onto the on-ramp to Foothill Expressway. Are we concerned that we might get cars queuing up there that would then block the intersection, preventing cyclists from entering that green striped area and preventing other cars from traveling through and across the bridge? I don't know what the traffic flows and volumes are like, and I'd like someone to take a look at that to see what kind of queuing might happen there, and what kind of congestion would occur on that bridge, blocking the cyclist access from A Street. I'm also concerned about cars going straight from A Street. It looks like they would be driving right on that hashed blue bike lane conflict zone. I'm a little concerned about the placement of that. I'd like to see some more precise drawings to help me indicate what kind of clearance there really is between a bike and a car through that intersection. In terms of the green pavement treatment, I heartily endorse that. I think that in the conflict zones, that'll be very handy for cyclists and for motorists as well to understand, especially in this big expanse, where you are all supposed to be and where to expect one another. I think that's a real important safety cue. In terms of the aesthetic treatment, I do appreciate the concepts that are presented. I want to make sure that whatever we decide, that it's enduring and timeless and not trendy and in the moment, because this is going to be with us for a very, very long time. With that, I look at the Loyola Woods concept with the candy stripe treatment for the crosswalk, and I'm concerned about that. I've seen what's happened downtown with their piano key or candy stripe sidewalks, and I think they are pretty much a mess at this point, and they're brand new. They didn't survive well with all of the traffic that occurred across it, so I would question that. In terms of the Loyola Depot concept, the brickwork on the crosswalk treatment, I like that, and I would encourage the county to go and look at El Camino and Stanford Avenue, where they reconfigured that entire intersection, and they put crosswalks similar to this, but they've done an excellent job, and I would look to someone to take a look at that as an example of how to apply this type of treatment in a successful fashion. I'm concerned about the monolith on the Loyola Depot concept, the big yellow monolith off to the right. Given our past success and failures with monoliths, I would take a look at that and to make sure it's of an adequate size as it relates to human scale. Right now, it looks rather large. If you go to the Loyola Depot image, if you could on here, I'm just concerned that the mass of that is
Which
imposing.
is the monolith?
The right-hand side.
Ah.
Just concerned at the size and overall presence of it. In terms of the actual bridge design, I prefer the Loyola Depot concept with the brick insert because it does visually break it up rather than looking as massive as it does in the Loyola Woods. It's a little blocky and a little bit harsh looking. Those are my primary comments. I'm also, one other comment on the Loyola Depot concept, that low wall. Know that will be very attractive to skateboarders.
Yeah.
So, and they will use it inappropriately. And those are my comments. Thank you.
May I ask Jim, we'll be getting that email describing how to send more comments in as well?
Yes, we'll distribute that tomorrow to both commissioners.
Great, thank you.
Malcolm, why don't you start this one?
I guess we're just discussing it today.
Yes.
And we basically can't do much else. But I like what they've done. If you go on the site plan or this one. The color coding, I think that works really well. People like to follow. It's a natural inclination that if you have something which is guiding you, is just easier, and basically you're just following the arrows and things. I liked one of the comments here that I would like to see the right lane on Fremont basically be striped so that people who are driving the cars, they know that they are going to be sharing it with bicyclists. I think that's very important. I myself wake up when I see that sign on the road, and I drive a gigantic car, so I keep my eyes open and I'm always more alert, and I think it's good to have that reminder, especially here where it seems to me that this green striping is based with the new project, but it really does not continue anywhere. It's like we bring you from one portion of the bridge to the other, but the rest, you guys can kind of figure out how to go. And I think that is dangerous, especially in this area. There are a lot of families, kids are encouraged to bike. I think if we could somehow extend that so that it goes beyond this, that would be nice. I also don't recall, I actually went to the site, I just drove by it today. I had no clue what we were honestly looking at, but I thought I should at least look at the site one more time. And there is no parking on the right, the bottom right side. I don't know if that is something that is being suggested.
That is proposed, yes.
Okay, because it's not reading as proposed because of the gray scale. It shows as if it exists. So that was something I thought was surprising. The one comment I have is whenever I have driven by on Foothill, I've always thought that this bridge is such an amazing opportunity because this is the only bridge when you're coming towards the downtown or coming from 280 through Foothill, and I thought this could be one of those most, very creative, amazing artwork, local, some sort of a statement. I mean, it doesn't have, I won't use the word gate. It's not a gate to the city. The city already started at 280. But it's just one opportunity to make it interesting. Like if you're on Foothill, why would you want to come on A Street and come to these shops if it's something interesting? Again, I personally would like, I know we're dealing with the county and we're dealing, but I see this the perfect example of actually getting our art commission in. The sculpture we have across the street, as I've mentioned in a couple of projects where, there are kids playing. That's a simple statement, but it really brings home, what the city is about. And I would love to see something like that. And, no offense, but I really was not moved with any of the proposals that has been put up where the bridge aesthetics is concerned. Brick is great. We are implementing on the floor, but I don't. Maybe it's just right now very generic and earlier on in the process. But it's not. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it just doesn't seem anything that goes with our city at all. Unfortunately, for me.
Renate?
I agree with Mocha. It seems like an opportunity to do something special. And I don't think we've accomplished that in the aesthetics. One thing I agree also is I think we should do the green striping down Fremont Avenue on the southern portion where there are supposedly parking spots, but there are actually none. I think that would be really appropriate, and it would kind of tie into the green striping that continues. My concern, and I don't know how to solve it, but I think some time should be put into it, is that when people come up from Fremont, from the south, and they cross A Street, I think a lot of pedestrians, if they see bikes going across that green line, are going to start walking across that green line. And you really have to do something that's going to tie in that much further crosswalk so that they are not walking in a diagonal in the middle of a very busy intersection. I would like, if we're going to do these bump outs, to really have them be something that creates an area where, the pedestrians are kind of encouraged to come too. It's just, I'm not sure how to do that as well. But I'd like to see those bump outs be more of a congregating type area, because it's particularly on the north side of A Street where it's such a big section of it. I don't like that monolith. I think it's out of proportion with the area. And in terms of the two designs, you know, what I like about the brick, and I would say I don't actually like it, but what I like about is the change in color. So from afar, as you approach it, there's at least something that you're looking at. The Loyola Woods concept from afar, and I'm talking about this image, does nothing for me. And then at the same time, though, I do like the look of the natural stone with the capping, but I if there are reliefs there, that reminds me of like Hearst Castle, super cheesy. Hate the idea of it entirely. I don't think it's timeless. I think reminds me of the 80s. So maybe some other material or no design, or do something more public art like. But I think that has a lot of room for improvement.
Yes, you can.
The crosswalks, on the crosswalks, are we going to be putting in the illuminating lights like we have down on San Antonio?
We have a pedestrian demand system on some of our streets so that in places where people would cross and there isn't a signalized intersection, someone can push a button and a series of flashers come on, plus a loudspeaker that announces that traffic may not stop. But I have noticed they seem to be very effective in town.
Especially in the evening.
But this is a signalized intersection.
Much smaller.
And I assume that there will be a demand on the signal that you can push a button and have the light change? So.
Yeah, no, I meant more on the street.
Right, it's only signalized at Fremont and A, and where it's more treacherous, I find walking and biking across is at the off-ramp and at Frontero.
At Lundy Lane.
Because they're wide and cars just kind of come through.
So it might be something to consider.
That's it.
Go, John.
Okay, so what's being proposed here is better than what we have now, but it's never going to be good, and it's unfortunate. We have a confluence of way too many streets channeling through a bridge, going to way too many streets, and it's probably outside the scope of this discussion, but making a Foothill Expressway grade level, putting in a rotary, doing something else might be a better way to solve the problem. But to keep this meeting not going till midnight, I'm going to focus most of my comments as regard the proposal for a bridge. Yes, it would be nice to have something that is more distinctive. I'm constantly reminded every time I drive at night on 280 of the bridge that goes across there. It's an architectural marvel, and wouldn't that be nice? But maybe I'm setting my standards too high. I do agree that Fremont Avenue should be striped for bicycles. With regard to the choices, some of you missed the prior discussion, but I'm not a brick kind of guy. Don't like brick, and it's really not in the historical context of Los Altos, so I'm not sure there's historical basis. The one point that I will make that I think is really important that hasn't been addressed is not the bicycle and pedestrian issue with this bridge, but it's the car issue. Every time I come off of Foothill Expressway headed south and try and make that left-hand turn, I'm flying blind, or rather I'm driving blind. And until you guys figure out a way to make that safer, I've got 5 streets on my right, some of which have stop signs, not all of which do, and I've got cars which are coming from a signalized intersection on the other side of the bridge, and I can't see a damn thing. And until you fix that, it frankly doesn't matter what you do in terms of the bridge, you still got a safety issue. So please fix that. That's it.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Of whom? Brian Fletcher or Eli?
I don't know who will know it, either Brian or Lee, maybe Lee. When is this project scheduled for? Is there a schedule for when they're going to start this?
Yes, there is. We are in the design phase. We plan on finishing up the design by late March, and the project will be advertised, and we plan construction to start by July.
Start July?
And
July
we-
2013.
Yes.
2015. And how long will it take to do?
In terms of working days, we're estimating 100 working days.
You know, I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said, so I do have a suggestion for the. I have the same concern you do about the barriers being made for skateboarders, but you know, if you just go to Mountain View on Castro, you can see you can put metal or something on top of those to stop that. You know, my concern, I have a shopping center that was a wonderful, thriving shopping center in off Highway 4 in East Bay, and then Caltrans came and decided they wanted to widen Highway 4 to put in BART. And that shopping center that was so wonderful was now bordering on the brink of bankruptcy and foreclosure, because the off-ramp that was part of the widening just brought that whole area to its heels for 2 years. So my major concern is that it's going to devastate. I mean, I work out in a little on Loyola Corners, and this is my neighborhood, and that area right now is suffering from traffic as it is now for drive-bys, and this is going to kill it. So I don't know what it is that we're going to do to help these retailers for the 3.5 months you're talking about doing it. How are you going to divert? There's only one way, really. Now.
Well, there's a question. Is there a plan for how to keep the bridge operational while the work is being done?
Yes, this is one of the requirements. We are going to keep one lane of traffic open in each direction at all times.
Oh, that's very helpful. Glad to hear that.
Good.
So there will be
great.
stage construction. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll pass. Everyone else said what I was going to say.
Okay.
Question on that, when during construction, that will be during the school year, I'm wondering, will we be putting additional crossing guards at this location during construction to help with the school children getting to the school?
I don't think that's the county. I think that's to be brought up. We should make that comment when it goes through.
Actually, well, I was going to say that this area is actually Santa Clara County, and the city has no jurisdiction in putting crossing guards there.
Oh, cool. Well, let's make sure that comment gets put in. Do you have other comments to make?
I absolutely do.
Go for it.
Well, this is the major thoroughfare for Loyola and Block students. I mean, this is how they get to and from school every day. And I see kids riding through that, and I'm so grateful that you guys are going to enlarge this, because it is a disaster as it is. I happen to have a post office box down the street, and I come through here all the time. My comment is that this area needs to be considered as one big intersection. Rather than the A Street, Fremont, Loyola Drive, it really should go back to the off-ramp at least, because all those cars queue up at the off-ramp. They're trying to get onto Loyola Drive. It backs up all the time, and it's significant that I would like to see, I mean, as a kid coming through there at the off-ramp, to at least have a signal that they can at least hit a crosswalk light or at least turn green or something that prevents cars from coming across that. I just see this area, whether it's Loyola Drive and you have keep clear signal wording in the streets. When you get up to the frontage road, I don't know how. So I'm going kind of left side. That left turn, there's a lot of bikes that come through here and turn left there, and I don't know what we can do to try to make that obvious to cars. There are going to be people trying to turn left at that intersection who are on bikes, and I know the cars come through there, and it's a real nightmare I know that public comment from the county and all that land to the left is all county property. So we can't, as a city, say what gets done, but that is a major disaster, and we talked about a roundabout or something that could be done. But so when I look at the sidewalk proposal, there are no sidewalks there. So you're going to have raised curb to
nothing.
To nothing. Also, that's the same thing on the right side where Fremont is, where that monolith is. There's a sidewalk there that's nothing, because there's no more sidewalk on that left side between Fremont and Foothill. Do you know? I see a blank stare.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to find
So you see that where it says Bridge Gateway Plaster Type?
High Laster, next to Fremont.
Yeah, there's a little sidewalk part, and you can see it in your drawing.
but there's no sidewalk on
That's
the side.
right.
That's exactly right. So you've got it coming down, and then you're going to have it coming up, and then it's going to stop.
Okay.
So it's like, why even put it there? Why not just have it go down and have it come across?
Sure.
Right. Similarly, the street on A Street, the sidewalk appears to be into Tom's Depot there. I don't think that's true. I don't know if that's going to be a wider sidewalk that's there, because that sidewalk currently is only about 2 feet. It's very narrow, and if it's going to be a regular sidewalk, you're now encroaching into A Street, which gets back to my recommendation to the city is let's fix this area. I mean, this is a major disaster, and trying to have two-way traffic in an area that we're having a lot of pedestrians, especially students, we're asking for something to happen. Along those comments, I'm sorry, I'm getting all worked up because I'm in this area, and it's a nightmare. The bulb out that's along Fremont Avenue on the top where Tom's Depot is, in front of that area, I'd like to see some protection from cars, because if you're making that left turn and we have elderly drivers coming through there and they don't make that turn, I've talked to an owner there, they drive onto the sidewalk. There's potential for driving into the building. There's no protection at all. So that's just a straight car. If I'm trying to make the light, I don't turn the thing, I'm going right into Tom's Depot. I mean, to me, we should have something that at least takes some of that brunt of the impact of the car. I like Commissioner Janae's comment about that bridge. It would be nice to have signage, in the bridge that says Loyola Corner, something that says this is a place. At least I know where Loyola Corner is. Right now, I drive down Foothill. I don't think there's anything that mentions Loyola Corner in that area.
I have to say that from my position on the wayfinding subcommittee, that's going to change.
Okay, thank you. Also, I'd like to see the city continue. So part of it is I like this idea of the bike lanes. It helps a lot. But if it doesn't tie to the city, and I don't know who owns Fremont Avenue, if that's part of the county or is that part of the city? It's the city, so it's the same thing, that we could tie in with A Street and Fremont Avenue. This green lane would be helpful for bicyclists, because there's a lot of kids that come through that area. And I don't know how, right now they take their lives in their hands. They ride on the sidewalk. They do everything to try to do this as safely as possible. And there isn't a way to do it currently. So as we enlarge this area, I think we're inviting, which is a good thing, but the city of Los Altos needs to step up and say, okay, we're going to make this area safer for our students, who are going to our public schools. Yeah, so that's...
Okay, and...
Can I just clarify that one comment before moving on?
Of course.
The signage for Loyola Corners?
Yeah.
Were you, because that was a discussion in our office as well, are you talking about as you're driving down Foothill? Or
Yeah, if you could bring up the view of the... Yeah, so if some way underneath, like not where the brown is, but where the white is, I don't, if you're going to redo that bridge, but make it so that you can see Loyola Corner in the concrete below it. So as I'm driving down Foothill, I see it. I don't necessarily can turn there, but at least I know that's where Loyola Corners is.
What about an archway?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what, but something...
I didn't know whether it was on the facade of the bridge as you're going down Foothill, whether it was something that was incorporated into...
I'd rather see it lower than street level, street level or lower from the bridge perspective. It just, to me, it just would call out that area. And I don't think there's a restriction on height. There might be, and so you've got to deal with some of that issue. But like in this picture, this monolith on the right, I don't see what purpose it serves. and I know there's one on the left, because most people that are driving, they know where they are. It's the people on Foothill that we'd like to attract.
Okay. Jim?
Thanks. So I'm going to reiterate some of the comments that my fellow planning commissioners, as well as the people on BPAC, actually said. This intersection is a disaster. I mean, I think that the major objective to this project is to make it better than it is, but it's never going to be perfect. And I do agree with Mike's comment. If we're going to do something with this bridge environment, we need to kind of consider the side streets, the feeding streets, the everything associated with this. It's almost like an entire ecosystem. In particular, I mean, I'm looking at the design for this, and the bulbs specifically on Fremont. I mean, my recollection is that area is very narrow for car traffic, and to have a bulb out and then feed it into 2 lanes of traffic just doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. The other aspect is actually on both sides of Fremont, on the north and the south side. Whereas a bulb out on the Frontero area, which actually seems to, if you actually bulbed it out, it actually would mate the pedestrian access with the bike access. Probably makes more sense to me, because I think that there's just too narrow of a space and there's too many cars and there's too much confusion there on Fremont Avenue. But on the Frontero side, it actually might benefit from a bulb out on that side. I'm concerned very much about bike traffic going on north on Fremont Avenue, as well as going east on A Street. I think that the bike access lane that goes into the middle of the intersection, where there are 3 paths for cars, is ridiculous. I mean, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that there's any safety standards that can actually support that as actually a good thing to do. So, I mean, just to make sure everybody's understanding, you're hoping that bicyclists will follow a lane just because you're painting it on the ground into the major intersection of 3 streets. Okay, and I don't know why that would be considered a safe design. It just doesn't seem like an intuitive thing for me to do, and I would actually suggest that that's one of those intersections where you force bicyclists to kind of take a right turn and then follow a more logical bike access that goes across, that follows the pedestrian way. Because obviously you're looking to minimize the potential intersection points between pedestrians, cars, and bikes. And I can't imagine a better place to have more intersections than right in the middle of that green lane. And we're talking about lots and lots of bike access, specific for kids, for Loyola and Block. I encourage, striping with green lines because it makes it very evident, but definitely not in this case. As regards to the kind of the aesthetics to this, I agree with this. I mean, this is a very dated bridge. We're going to make an opportunity to improve it. This is actually it. In terms of the aesthetics, I'm kind of split about it. I'm not crazy about brick, especially not for this application. I agree with John Baer's comment. There's really not a whole lot of historical precedent for actually putting brick in this environment. And it just doesn't seem like it belongs. But beyond that, that's my comments.
Phoebe, I have one more comment, if I may.
I don't know. Oh, of course. Well, it's my turn, but go ahead, Suzanne.
I also have one more comment.
A comment about the right turn from A Street going northbound onto Fremont Avenue. Any car turning right there with a green light will turn right and be surprised by that crosswalk a half a block away. Yeah. And pedestrians that are stepping into that crosswalk are at risk. Similarly speaking, if you were to change that green bike lane and, quote, force bikes to use the crosswalk, Jim, that will never happen, 1. And 2, putting bikes over there, they will be at similar risk of being hit by a car turning right, not expecting a pedestrian or a cyclist there. And given the narrowness that Michael remarked next to Tom's Depot, there's not a lot of room for a bike to turn right and make it to that crosswalk and then cross. So it's a challenging intersection. I think some of your concerns would be resolved if A Street were made one way. Did I say that out loud?
Now, who was was it you, Bill? Go ahead.
I don't know if I can use a mic or not. One of the things I wanted to address to the
It helps because it gets transmitted,
the
so.
commission is to share with you
Oh, my
something
God.
that I did back when my kids were in Loyola. This is Quick Hill, and here's, thank you. All right. I'm going to rotate it at 180 degrees if I can. Just to more oriented with that. Loyola Bridge is basically right here. What I wanted to share with you, what I did, we plotted where everyone lived. And this area, all up in here, is unincorporated county. And the message that came out was this is incredibly a kid-rich area. All these kids go to Los Angeles School District schools. This area up in here goes to Cupertino, this is Los Angeles. They go to Loyola, they go to Block, and they go to Mountain View. And you think high school. You know, Mountain View is getting close to 109 kids on their promotional days riding bikes. That's a lot of bicycles for a high school. I've been down to San Jose, where you look at the bike cages, maybe you see 3 bikes. 109. That's because we have very strong programs in the elementary and junior high school. And the other point I'll bring out is statistics have pointed out that about 30% of our morning traffic is tied to the school commute. Parents driving their kids to school. And the more kids we get walking and biking,
The less
more
we
they do
reduce
that.
that.
This bridge has been a known problem since I did this in 1999. A lot of the people back in there worked through county roads to this nest to make this happen. It's taken a long time. But the other thing I would point out, that hasn't been brought up, this bridge is becoming ADA compliant. We have individuals who cross right now this bridge and the traffic lane on their motorized wheelchairs because there is no sidewalk that they can get up on. So this goes a long way to solving their needs as well. I don't want to forget the ADA aspect of it. That's huge.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, so I'm glad you did, because,
I just want to leave
Yeah.
a visual as how kid-rich.
oh, yeah.
And can I just add to that? Because, Bill, as you know, we've been counting on Walk to School days, how many kids are going there, and Greentown has been advocating, and the school district has been complying with having student counts. In the recent count in September, Loyola School has 50% of their kids walking or riding or carpooling to school. So the numbers are increasing dramatically.
So what I'd like to do is summarize what we've heard and then give you my particular little bits on it. But I think that the consensus that we're hearing is this is a great thing you're doing. It's so great that we want more. And the reason we want more is because it is an incredible town value that we want our kids not to be in cars. And so we're very concerned, as Bill showed you, how much we know that we've been working for a number of years on programs to get our kids on foot, on bikes. We want them out of cars. We want to reduce the car trips to the school. And unlike an earlier hearing, this comes in a cluster. This is not staggered. This is a huge rush hour of little people, and we really value our little people. So with that said, the intersection at the side where Fremont intersects, you've put a lot of energy in, and we can see that. It's far from perfect, and I think some of the particular safety comments about adding bollards to keep random drivers. I just saw a YouTube of someone who drove around a school bus stopping for disabled kids in Ohio. Yep. Just knocked my socks off. So that kind of little thing will be fine. But I think, I don't know what's in your purview, and you'll get the comments. We're saying look at the other side of the intersection, which is far less defined and much more in its amorphous sense dangerous. Now, I did notice on that side there are these two little things that say curb ramp with tactile warning. And I knew that was ADA, and I was so glad Bill brought that up, because it's clear you have to address it. But this is a very small piece that barely touches the problem. And in fact, in my understanding, you're doing this because if you don't, you will be dinged. I think we're hoping that you will step up and do more, because this little bit that makes this a compliant thing really is a joke, because there are no sidewalks, because we are a rural community, and therefore there's an opportunity for level crossing, there's an opportunity for on-demand signalization in that side, which is even more dangerous than the other. I concur on so you've heard there are a lot of comments about the specifics of how cars, bikes will move through this, and I think there's a consensus this is not going to be massively improved unless A Street changes, and that's probably not going to happen immediately, but it will at some point. We can suggest to council, if we want, that this might be something that maybe moves up on their agenda, though I know it's fairly high on their agenda now. It's just a matter of, as usual, who was the person who said we're financially challenged as a community? But your share, the county's share on this bridge, will make a huge difference in terms of encouraging us to move this on our side. But I cannot repeat often enough, look at the side by Lundy Lane, because that side by Lundy and Frontera is difficult at this moment and will only be worse when it looks so much better on the other side. As for and there's a competing set of goals, which is why getting it to work is so hard, because if you put in bulb outs to shorten the distance for pedestrians, you create a hazard for the bicyclists across Fremont. But in fact, the Frontera Arrow and Lundy Lane crossings are significantly wider than the Fremont. And in fact, if instead of bulbing out and disturbing the run of bicycle traffic along Fremont, which is integral to our community, you put the money on the bulb outs on the other side to shorten the pedestrian crossing distance there and perhaps improve that intersection by doing so, you would not be creating the problem on the east side, and you'd be improving the west side. That's a suggestion. I don't know how much is in your purview. I'm just bringing this up. The piece about the aesthetics is particularly difficult for me. I thought that Commissioner Junaid was remarkably brief, but I cannot agree with her more. The aesthetics of this leave a lot to be desired, and I understand the concepts. What I don't understand is why the bridge is opaque, in that the sidewalls are solid on all of the pictures. There's brick, there's cement, whatever. This is a dynamic intersection. People are moving across it, kids are moving across it, bicycles are moving across it, cars are moving under it. When you have an opaque railing, you are keeping that dynamic motion invisible. And I don't know if that was a deliberate choice or whether that's just an unintended consequence, because I think the opportunity missed is to see people moving. I think that's a really good thing, and I think in doing so you could get away from what I feel is an aesthetic which works on one level, perhaps, at the pedestrian level, not to my taste, and as you're determining, brick is not a big thing among these commissioners, but more importantly, you have to deal not only with the pedestrian scale and pedestrian pace, but also the dynamic scale of cars passing. And so in that sense, I think looking at the Calatrava Bridge that's in the north, and then the more recent derivative one that's down in, is that Sunnyvale or Cupertino? Sunnyvale. That is a transparent bridge, and when you go north, there is, by the BMW dealer, there's a huge swooping blue bridge that's completely translucent. It's very high. It's very protective. I was concerned about the height of these walls, which was also brought up relative to skateboarding and young people deciding they want to walk on top of it instead of next to it, which is why a different texture, something that is thin and not inviting to stand on, but rather reads as a protective and visible thing, could be great. I love the idea of announcing Loyola Corners in some way. It may not have to be incised in the concrete, because Lord knows the name may change, and then we're stuck with it forever. But I often see when the county does cross bridges, often there's an indication of what you're crossing, and that could be a sign that could be removable. It would be lovely if it wasn't in the county typeface, but I ask for small grace. But I think I would like to reiterate that there are two big aspects to this. One is that it should functionally improve the crossing in that area. And my take is some of it is working, some of it may never work until we can get our end fixed, but some of it, the other side, desperately needs more. The other aspect is the aesthetic, and the aesthetic, I think, needs to rise to a much higher level that's not so solid and opaque, but something that's more dynamic and active and doesn't invite school kids who are moving in great numbers across this area to use it inappropriately, whether on skateboard or on foot. I think that, with that said, I want to point out that our comments will have to go to a different mode. We're saying it to the people here, but in fact, if we really want these comments to go to the right people, we need to have the email that tells us the best way to do that, Jim, so that we can take this meeting input and get it out, so that when these people, when Eli and Brian go back, they don't have to say, well, this is what I heard. They will have hopefully an avalanche of information from at least 12 people that will be cogent and come with the aura of having some basis, because we are commissioners in our small town. Now, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just briefly did. I just wanted to point out that on Lundy Lane, there's a crosswalk, and there's no connection to that, to the ADA compliant sidewalk that's
Well,
up
I'm just
there.
pointing
And
out that whole side needs work, and thank you.
I
And
wanted
so-
to make sure that they at least thought about that, because that's another area.
So if you want to be compliant, let's go full tilt boogie. Okay, with that said, I am going to now adjourn this special meeting and then reopen the Planning and Traffic Commission so we can finish up. And thank you very much, gentlemen. This was delightful to be included in the process and to be informed. Thank you very much for your time.